All right. So, and you can see the slides and they're in slide view, and that's okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Okay, thank you for telling me. Okay. Um, so, hi everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm going to go ahead and get started. This is just a regular Sun monthly meeting. So we're going to start with updates from some of our community partners. And then I'll add a few, just a few more. Just going to advance that slide. There we go. It's working. So we'll start with some updates from community partners, and then we will and then we'll get into a couple of just an overview of the election process, because we're seeing we're still seeing a lot of questions about how things started and what's going on now and what's happening next. And so that'll be what we spend some time doing when we have the floor later on during this hour. But first, Kiera Jenkins from Denver Police is here and is going to talk to us about crime prevention and just a regular safety update. Kiera.
Good evening, everyone. How is everybody? It's been a while since we last met or spoke, since we haven't had the normal Sun meeting. So with COVID-19, we still don't have any of our community events going on, unfortunately. Pretty sad about that. But I did want to share the crime stats for the last 28-day period. So overall, for all of District 5, so that's 511, 512, 521, 22, and 23, violent crime is down 25.9%. Property crime, unfortunately, is on the rise and up 8%. And total crime is up 1%. But for 512, which is your neighborhood, for the last 28-day period, violent crime is down 23.5%. So that's great. Property crime, unfortunately, is up 22.3%, making total crime up 11.3%. Of that 22.3% of the property crimes, it's showing to be auto-related and criminal mischief related. And so when I say auto-related, there's two parts to that. There's been a lot of attempt auto thefts, specifically in the Bass Pro parking lot at the Northfield Mall. And then there's been a lot of attempt theft for motor vehicles where they go inside unlocked cars, they're rummaging through the vehicles, taking IDs, purses, things of value, and then taking garage door openers. We've had a few cases where those suspects have then returned with the garage doors and have completed some burglaries in people's residence. So I don't like to bring it up because I know it's kind of something that comes up every meeting, but just again, wanted to remind everyone to lock their car doors. If you can, take your garage door opener in the house with you and keep your belongings with you at all times. I did speak today with somebody from the Sun Board who said that there are some concerns with traffic, and I would love to work with you guys to figure out ways that we can make the community safer so that bikers, pedestrians, etc. feel comfortable when they are walking, riding on the streets. So if you do have some of those concerns and we haven't already been working with you to fix those, please shoot me an email or give me a phone call so we can chat about those and figure out if I can get the speed radar van out there, or if we can get some extra traffic enforcement, or even the speed sign that runs some statistics so we can really dial down on what those speeds are and how many people are actually speeding in those areas. I'll open up for questions for a few minutes if anyone has any.
So Kiera, I'll jump in here, Jeff Ederer. And for the participants in this meeting, if you have questions, go ahead and list it on the group chat, and then we will read the questions from there. Right now, it doesn't look like we have any questions. We'll wait another few seconds here. But otherwise, Kiera, if you stay on, then Amanda, maybe we can go to the next person. And if there's a question that comes up for her, we can always look back.
Carol, did you have your hand up for a question?
No, you got it.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you're seeing it, but I put one in the chat, but it was directed to Brian.
if you have any questions that you want asked, go ahead and if you're comfortable, do it to everyone. And if you're wanting it to remain private, send it to either myself or Carol Hunter. And there are a couple of questions that have come up right now. First one, Kara, are you still there?
I am.
Okay, first one, there seems to be a lot of drag racing around Wicker Park. Lots of speeding, very noisy. Any steps being taken around that? Thank you.
So drag racing is something that they're working with. We actually now have a task force directed to street racing. They are working on creating a hotline to where if you are hearing or seeing drag racing in your area, you can actually call or text that hotline. And they're working to have a specific unit to respond to those. With COVID happening, some of those meetings have kind of been pushed back, but it is in the works. If you tell me the times that that's occurring, I can ask for extra patrol. And then we are working to get a new District 5 traffic officer, in which case when they do finally make the decision on who that's going to be, I can send them an email and ask them to come out there and do some enforcement during those hours to try and arrest some of the racers.
Behind Urban Air Adventures every Sunday evening from 3 o'clock until 8 o'clock p.m.
So, Kara,
Thank you.
someone's saying, awesome, thank you. And then another question, I was wondering how the numbers reported compare to what's happening in the city more broadly. More crime in the area or less comparatively?
Okay, so unfortunately, I didn't pull the stats for all of Denver, but there's a really awesome tool that you can use, and it's open to the public, and that is at the denvergov.org website. When you go into that website, you can go to police and then choose crime, and it will allow you to look at your area specifically, but it will also allow you to compare it to citywide Denver, or maybe you can compare it to the Park Hill neighborhood. There are a lot of cool ways that you can check out crime that's happening in the city through that. And I can always email that over to Amanda, the steps on how to get to that.
Did you state what the hotline is for drag racing?
No, I did not, because they haven't sent it out yet. Like I said, they're still working on it.
Okay.
They were supposed to let that out about a month ago, but with the meetings being canceled, it's been kind of difficult.
So another question, sorry. Is it possible to get the speed statistics for East 29th Avenue?
East 29th Avenue at where? Like,
that's all we have. So for the question,
okay.
You can pass that along. I'll come back to it. There's a few more questions for you. When can we get the light at 56th and Dallas back to a blinking yellow instead of red?
Blinking yellow to red. I will reach out to Department of Transportation and Infrastructure to see why that was changed and what the reasoning is. And once I get that, I'll see if there is an option to change that back and figure that out for you guys.
Okay, another question. What about the kids riding around on the golf carts? They are trying to kill people, I heard.
Okay. I am not familiar with the golf cart incident. They are illegal. You cannot ride golf carts on public roadways because they're not a licensed vehicle, so they're not considered a vehicle. So if you do see those, continue to call them in. I know sometimes it's frustrating because by the time an officer drives by the area, that golf cart is already gone. But continue to call those in so we can pull the stats on that and send that to a traffic officer, but also to the commander. So we're trying to track that. ATVs and golf carts seem to be a huge issue right now, all over, especially because, you know, our teens don't have places to go, and the malls and things that they were normally hanging out at, they're not able to just congregate and hang out at those locations. So they're finding other things to do, and sometimes they're causing a little bit of trouble. So just make sure to.
And Kira, that was the 29th, just west of Central Park Boulevard, almost nightly.
Okay.
And then the traffic stats were generally in the area of Central Park Boulevard and 29th Avenue.
Okay. Central Park.
And then
And when you're talking about the golf course, you're talking about west of Central Park at MLK?
I'm talking about south of MLK and west of Central Park Boulevard.
Hey guys, I know the address of where those kids live. If somebody wants to PM me for the address, I watched them almost get run over several times.
Yeah, so if you have photographs of those individuals, definitely email them to me, because I can do a be on the lookout bulletin, or I can ask some of our day shift officers specifically to go out there and directly contact those kiddos so we can put an end to that.
Sure. And then also Brian V had his hand up for a question. You should be unmuted, Brian.
Yes, I am. My question is the same for speeding on 26th Ave and Bluff Lake.
Okay.
There are two very long blocks with no way of slowing people down. And people normally are going at least 40 to 50 miles an hour down these stretches of road. And
Okay.
my office is out front, and I see it every day, or I'm outside, and it's getting really outrageously fast. I've
Okay,
put
and
in a complaint on 311, and nothing happened.
Okay. Is that over there where the construction is, or is that further west? I'm trying to place exactly where you're talking about.
It's right before you get to Moline.
Okay.
So it's 26 from Iola to Moline.
Okay. I will send that to our traffic officers downtown. For a while there with the protest, they were actually utilizing our traffic officers to take care of the protest. But now everything is kind of operating back as normal. So I will shoot them emails in relation to all these traffic concerns and try and get some enforcement out in these areas.
A couple of quick program notes and then a couple more questions. One, folks, if you can type your questions into the chat box, that's going to help us be a little bit more efficient. And then second thing, just with my fellow Sun Board members, if you could help me by just throwing questions up in the Google Doc, because the chat box is moving around quite a bit as questions are added, so it's more difficult to follow. I may have missed some questions along the way. Okay,
And if you can't get to all of them, you can definitely shoot me a list of them all, and I can get them all to you tomorrow too, if that's easier.
excellent.
Yeah, and Jeff, sorry, so one of the other questions I had was, has the city ever thought of putting speed bumps on major streets? And I think the answer to that is that's not something that's sustainable with the public works because of snow plowing. Is that correct, Kira?
That's correct. I can ask Dana Hoffman to expand on that and more of the reasons as to why, but I know that we've asked in the past, and it's always kind of like, we'll do this. They'll look at other things, such as lights and only turning one way or the other way, things like that, but they won't ever discuss the speed bumps.
And for the benefit of everybody on the call here this evening and that kind of thing, Dana Hoffman, who is with city's transportation planning, will be one of our featured guests at a board meeting here later this summer, early fall. And so if you have transportation questions, please forward them through to the Sun Board website, and we'll get those to her so she can answer those when she presents. And we'll let you know what board meeting that is.
Kara, another question for you, and then Amanda, tell me, do we need to wrap this portion up after this next question?
Sure.
Okay. So one more that's been in here for a while. We've seen a surge in criminal behavior in the Founders Green area. This includes a lot of underage drinking and other graffiti. Last night I even saw small fires in the park area. I've come across several kids passed out completely, and in one case was assaulted. This appears to be kids with nothing better to do with their time. What is being done to address these issues? That's the question.
Okay. Yeah. So I believe I was working with somebody on this complaint as well just last week. So there is a no trespass agreement in place for that park. And so I sent a email out to all of District 5 patrol officers asking that if they do come in contact with somebody who is drinking or is there after hours, to contact them and at the minimum cite them, and depending on the circumstances, they can also be arrested. So the officers are working on that. I did speak with, I'm sorry, I can't remember his name, but he was going to, because the elements of the crime for trespass, we have to at least give them the opportunity to leave since the park hours and the time of the no trespass is after 11 p.m. So if it's before that, he, as Sun Board members, and I'm sorry, I'm thinking of the MCA, you can, with that no trespass, any of you would be able to ask them to leave. Now, if they refuse, at that point, they are trespassing, and you can have an officer dispatched out there to take care of that and arrest them for trespass. I've also asked for extra patrol in that area. So when calls allow, I'm asking officers to drive by and contact these children, because we would like to compensate their alcohol if they are underage, and at least reach out to parents, because most times it seems that the parents are maybe at work or just have no idea where their kiddos are. And so if we can contact the teen and then get their parents' information, we can take the kid directly back to their home and speak with their parents and figure out a way to keep them from doing that at the park.
And I see Diane wants to add something.
Yeah, Kiara, thank you. Kiara has been working with the MCA on this issue. We've had issues at the green, at all of our pools, lots of vandalism, lots of drinking, and they are young kids, many younger than high school age. They're junior high or middle school age, many of them. And what we need people and residents in the community to do is when they see something going on like this, they need to call 911, because if it's after 11 o'clock, they are trespassing. If they're in the pools, they are trespassing if the pool is closed. So we need, just for safety's sake, the community to help us with this and be our eyes on these areas. We do have security, but it's not somebody sitting right there watching every single hour of every single day. So we do need help from the community to call 911 when they see people after hours in these areas, or if they see behavior that's not appropriate for young people to be conducting. Thanks.
Kiara, before you go, we spoke by email today, and so I will get back to you because some of what's been brought up is relevant. Has been brought up, and I had 3 or 4 contacts just today about, it was specifically teenage girls in the golf carts on MLK and Central Park Boulevard. So I will give you the details in an email tomorrow.
Perfect, thank you. And then I'll stay on till the end of the meeting. So at the very end, if anybody has any questions, you can feel free to ask them.
Thanks. So thank you, Kiara, appreciate it. Amanda, as we switch back over to you for a second, if you didn't get your question answered, please try and contact Kiara directly. Thanks.
And also, I have, my screen is shared with the slides, and so I can't, if you're messaging me directly, I'm not going to see it until after the meeting. So please be sure that those messages are going to other board members. Lily, thank you very much, Kiara. And Lily Kosmicki from the Denver Library.
Let me just jump in real quick, Kiara. I got a message here too to check your chat. I think you're getting some messages sent directly to you. All right.
Hi. I'm Lily Kosmicki, librarian at the Sam Gary branch, and the library really misses the community. First of all, we did start doing curbside pickup, so you can place holds now, and we will pull them for you, and you can reserve a spot to come pick them up. The pickup is every week, Tuesday through Saturday. The Saturday hours are 10 to 12:30. Every other day of the week is 12 to 5:30, and we will probably extend those hours next month. We are doing daily virtual story times. You can tune in over the Denver Public Library YouTube. And also Summer of Adventure, our summer reading program, is going on as well. You can sign up online. The last day is July 31st to sign up. but prize pickup will begin shortly after that. And yeah, if you need book recommendations, personalized reading lists are available to you, also online. That's all I've got. Let me know if you have any questions.
No questions showing. Oh, wait, hold on. No, there's no questions right now. Thanks, Lily.
All right, Lily, how many books that people took out before quarantine started have you guys had returned so far, or are you still operating in like a deficit of books?
Yeah, we opened the book drops first, so we started to get returns coming back in. We are quarantining all items for 4 days, so there's an elaborate system of where the books are left and when they get returned. But we spent a lot of our closed hours making room for all the returns that would come back. So I think we're ready.
Okay, sounds good. Are there any other questions?
No other questions in the chat at this point.
Okay. All right, Diane, since you've kind of already spoken, are there any additional updates do you want to add from the MCA? Thank you very much, Lily.
You know, we've just got pools reopened, and we have a limit of 50. There's a 50 per hour-and-a-half session. There is a reservation system. We have gone to, you may only reserve every other day so that we can get more people in, and that seems to be helping tremendously. So we did have our first concert. I don't know if anybody enjoyed Hazel Miller on Sunday at the Stanley, but our next one is August 16th. And then we have a movie at Dick's Sporting Goods Park, drive-in movie. And it is this Friday night, and it is little. So come enjoy.
All right, are there any questions for Diane or the MCA?
No questions showing up right now.
All right. Okay. I will jump back in then. Okay. So, whoops. Okay. So thank you, community partners. Oh, Amanda Schultz. Is Amanda on the call?
Yes, hi, I'm here.
Hi.
I don't have any specific announcements, but I will be on for the remainder. So if anybody has questions, I'll be here.
Great. Okay, and that's Amanda Schultz representing District 8 for Denver City Council with Chris Herndon's office. Okay. All right. So let's get back to, sorry, let me rearrange some things here. And all right. Okay. So here we go. So I'm going to spend the next couple of minutes walking through just what we've done for the past about a month and a half now, or about a month, and what's happening right now, and then what's happening in the coming weeks, because we're seeing a lot of questions about that, and now is just a great time to walk through everything. So just to kind of back up and remind you of who SUN is. So SUN is the Registered Neighborhood Organization for the Stapleton community in Denver. And our purpose is to be a forum for residents to participate in pursuing the vision of the neighborhood, to pursue social equity, environmental responsibility, and economic opportunity. We're an outlet for public service, and we promote civil discourse, and we strive for collective efficacy. So a lot of the SUN board members are sharing their images right now, so you can kind of, this might be what your screen looks like, but here's the slate of us right now. There are 12 people who are currently on the SUN board. We've had a lot of interest in the past couple of weeks about the 3 open seats that we have, and so we have a growing list of people who are interested in joining the SUN board. And so we do sometimes have off-cycle times when we bring people in if there's an open seat. So our elections happen every May, and around half of the board is up for a 2-year term each May, and then they're elected as a slate. So we publish a short bio in the front porch in the spring, and then in May we propose the slate to the community at our annual forum, and then that's how half of the board is brought on every year. And so this year we had 2 new board members, and so their bios were featured in the front porch. The remainder of the descriptions of board members were just on our website because they were people who were returning to the board. And so a handful of people who are on this call might be the people who have expressed interest in joining us. So I'm excited to have you with us tonight. Thank you. And everyone is welcome to stay on for what we kind of refer to as the board hour, which happens after the first hour. So starting at around 7:30 is when we'll get more into the business of the board. And then this first hour is what we refer to as the outreach hour. And it's just more general announcements and community communication. All right. Are there any specific questions about seats or those vacancies? Or does anyone just want to wave and say that they're one of the people that had contacted us?
So there's no questions in the
Okay.
chat box.
Thanks, Jeff.
Bye. See ya.
Okay. All right. So I'll keep moving. So now I'm just going to walk through the timeline that we've had in the renaming process. Because we still see a handful of questions every day or every other day about how this started and what's happening next. So so backing up until to the beginning of June, we announced on the 12th, which was a Friday, of our intention to start a multi-step process regarding the name, finding an alternative name for our organization. And so that email went out to the community on Friday the 12th. We'd been talking about it as a board for the days in that week, like starting on Monday of that week, a little bit the week before. And so the communication went out on that Friday the 12th. And then it was that same weekend that the MCA and Chris Herndon said that they would support the process and work with the name that came out of our efforts to find an alternative name. And so our first community meeting after that was the following Wednesday, which was it was our regular monthly meeting, so that would have been Tuesday the 16th, and that was where we described what we had announced the preceding Friday, and also described a couple of different routes that we were considering taking to home in on the alternative name. It was the following week when we met on Wednesday and voted on what that final plan would be. And so that was where we outlined that we would be taking votes from adults who are owning or renting in the community in either Denver or Aurora, in the Stapleton community in either Denver or Aurora. We would be taking names up until the 29th of June, and then we would be taking community input through the 5th of July, and we would convey that to an advisory board of 11 seats. So those seats were 2 from the Sun Board, 2 MCA delegates, a representative from the Greater Stapleton Business Association, a representative from Rename Stapleton for All, a representative from Black Lives Matters, a representative from the Citizens Advisory Board for the Stapleton community, a nomination from Councilman Herndon's office, and an Indigenous community representative, as well as 1 high school voice, which was comprised of 3 people who had 1 vote collectively. Yeah, and there were a couple of support people in on the advisory board meetings, and it was facilitated by a professional facilitator who is contracted through the city of Denver, whose son has worked with over the years leading up to this. Okay, and so we pursued all of those actions. So we kept taking names through the end of June, June 29th. We were taking feedback in the straw poll until right before the advisory board met. The advisory board met the 7th through the 9th, and then they reduced the names down from 331 to 9. There's a report on our website that's available that describes what their expectations and the considerations were by which they were operating. It also, that same document includes straw poll results that the advisory board had at their for their reference during those meetings. And then immediately after that, the community began voting. And so that was last week. We started with 9 names at the beginning of last week. And after the field closed, we reduced the number of names available down to 4 as planned. And then the second week of voting is open now. Hopefully you all have voted. If you need a link to do that, maybe one of the other board members who has access to chat can put that in the chat for your reference. Let's see. Yeah, so that's, oh, and here we go. So that's right. So we had the 9 names initially last week, ended the week with 4. You're voting on the 4 names right now in round 2. So what's happening next after this is that we will have a round 3. No matter what the results are from round 2, we're going to have a round 3 of votes and a round 3 of voting where 2 names will be out for you to choose between, and then the name that emerges from that will be announced on August 1st. So then after that, we'll get into the implementation phase of what to do with the name that emerges from that process. And so any organization that's going to take that name and do something with it will then need to act on by whatever process is required of them to do that. The Sun Board has a process outlined in our bylaws that requires that we have a petition with 100 signatures, and that would trigger a vote on changing our bylaws, which is the way by which we would change our organization's name. We would require 30 days notice for such a meeting before it's scheduled, and then we would have a community vote at that meeting for our organization's name to change. So in parallel to those efforts, other entities could be moving forward to work with the name. Some of the timing of getting a name selected by August 1st was an effort to meet the schedule that we knew the MCA board would be meeting in mid-August. And so the delegates, so this is a meeting of the Sun Board today. A separate meeting would be the MCA delegates. They meet on the 3rd Wednesday of each month, I think. That might not be correct, something like that. And so they will take the name that emerges from this and decide and vote whether to move that forward to their board of directors, who can then move that name forward to Brookfield. That's something that could happen, but that's outside of what happens in the Sun Board. But these are the steps that the Sun Board will be taking after the name emerges from this process. Okay. All right. So I alluded to some documents that we have on our website. I've listed the website here, and there's just a sub-tab that has changed the name information on it. We have updates almost every day posted to that site, and then links to specific documents are at the very bottom of the page. And so that's where you can find slides from previous meetings, the 2 June meetings that I talked about, some video from those meetings, the straw poll results, and the advisory board meeting materials are at a link at the bottom of that page, and the round 1 results are just posted close to the top at this time. That's where we'll be posting the results from round 2 when it closes, and those are available. And then the same thing, we're working on details for how things will be announced on Saturday, August 1st, but certainly on the website will be one place where that information will be available. We've had some questions about how Sun has been getting the word out about all of this. And so on the slide, some of those modes are listed. We have posts to our website, which is accessible to the public. The link was just on that previous slide. We copy that information onto Facebook, and so it's pushed out on social media that way. Sun sends emails. We have a distribution list of, I think, Brian, what's the number on our distribution list at this time?
Brian?
Sorry, I was muted. I'm trying to I'm trying to multitask. We have about 10,000 names on our email distribution at this point.
Okay, it's a test in fine motor skills and reaction time. Okay, so Sun sends emails out to people who have either participated in the straw polls, signed up for our emails previously, or I guess those are the ways that, or have voted previously. So we're taking all of the email addresses that we get from all of these modes and pushing them into our distribution list. So if you've participated once, then you should be getting information from us. Unless, of course, in the past you've opted out, in which case there's no way we can bring you back onto the emailing list. That's correct, Brian?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
I'll leave myself off mute.
Okay. All right. Okay. Okay. And so in addition to Sun emails, the MCA has a distribution list for the community that reaches about 90% of people. The Front Porch newspaper is delivered to households across the community and across the region. And that came out on July 1st. And the story was featured on the front page of that. People have asked why we didn't do a mailing to each household. The cost of that would be like tens of thousands of dollars. Over $10,000, and so that these are methods that have not brought a cost to the community. The story has been covered by most local media outlets for like weekly for the past several weeks. It's been covered by CNN. Sun Board members flyered local businesses, shops, the towns in both of the town centers, all the town centers. I believe we also put flyers in pools and also in high density housing areas. And then we're also asking for each of you on the call to serve as another method that we can get information out to the community by please talking to your neighbors while wearing a mask from 6 or more feet away, and helping to encourage participation in the vote. So are there further questions about?
Amanda, there are some questions in the
Okay.
chat.
All right.
So Jeff, I don't know if you want to ask them.
Sure. Let me just say to the folks listening, our chat box is pretty wonky. I'm not confident any of us have seen all the questions that are coming from different people. Some of us seem to have questions from some people, some don't seem to have any. So if you're not getting a question answered, you may want to ask it again and we'll see if we can catch it somehow. But yeah, I'll just go first question, just to confirm, it is only residents of the development proper that are eligible to vote, ? That broader community cannot vote, ? And of the eligible voters, this includes anyone, not just homeowners, correct?
That's right. And so there might be a little bit of confusion about this because during the MCA's vote last year, they're restricted to only owners voting, and each household in the MCA's voting process gets 1 vote per household. Whereas with anything that Sun is doing, it's at the individual level. So each adult who's living, whether that's owning or renting here, has a vote. And it is just the footprint of this community, so the Stapleton community in Denver or in Aurora. And again, as previously outlined, the next step after the name emerges is for Sun to change its name, and that'll be a process that's in agreement with our bylaws. But what we're doing right now is not directly tied to an action in our bylaws, and that's why we are including the residents in Aurora, or that's why we're allowed to include the residents who are living in Aurora, who live in Stapleton, because it's not a process that's impacting our bylaws. And this is something that affects them, and they should definitely participate, and it's important that they do.
And Amanda, one thing on that, there have been some people that have emailed us about questions like, I didn't get the message, or all you need is the survey link that's posted on the Change the Name part of our website. If you are having problems, you should clear your browser because there are cookies that SurveyMonkey keeps. So clear the browser and try to vote again if there are problems with the second or third person potentially in the household voting from the same computer. So again, we are not putting a limitation but we are validating and looking for duplicates before the final validation.
And we will put out a report when the final vote is out on August 1st that includes detailed methods about what that validation looks like and what all of the numbers were for each round, for each name, and how many were counted, how many were excluded. But that's not something that we're releasing with each wave of voting results.
Amanda, a couple people asking about the Mosley name, so I'm going to read both of them because they kind of follow each other. Is there concern about the Mosley name? I see that you have an unanswered question about the use of that name. You have indicated that you need to get the family to sign a release. Is this an issue? Where does it stand? And then the follow-up that question, would it be possible to wait to vote for the next round until after we get an answer from the Mosley family about whether we will have to pay for use of the family name in the community? I think this would be an important piece of information that should be disseminated prior to the next round.
The representative that we were in contact with yesterday thought that they would have a response today, but I'm looking in my inbox now and I haven't seen anything come in today. So I would expect, given that they thought it would be today, that they would have a response before the next round. So I would imagine that we'll have that information.
Amanda,
Yeah.
I've got one here, again, with regard to Mosley. It asked about the different variations of Mosley that were in the straw poll and how those rankings were with regard to Mosley Park and Mosley Place and that kind of thing. That would probably be a reference back to the straw poll on the Sun site, which is available on the Sun site. Is that correct?
Sure. Those results are on the Sun's website, but it might also be, I think we've had a question that I don't know that we answered adequately about why it was Mosley that was offered and not Mosley Park. So I don't know, Rick or Mandel, as members of the advisory board, do you have anything to share about why it was Mosley and not Mosley Park?
I can take a stab at that, and then Mandel, if you want to fill back in. Mandel and I were both on the advisory board, but and I shared some of that information that should be back on the Sun website, again, in response to that. But the advisory board, as we talked through the multitude of varieties of applications there, and the aspect of potentially naming the park, Mosley Park, or the rec center, Mosley Rec Center, or Mosley RTD stop, and that kind of thing. As we circled back around and talked about it, the general consensus that came out of the group was to go just strictly with the name Mosley, and that following this process, that those who desired to could follow back up with potential renaming processes of those other features throughout our community. So,
Mandel,
yeah, and I would just add that the one of the concerns was that if we named it Mosley Park and the desire was to rename Central Park to Mosley Park, then it would be Mosley Park. So we kind of went round and round, like Rick said, and came up with Mosley as the most useful name, I think.
Yeah, versatile. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
I'm gonna stick with the Mosley name for another question here. Have you checked with an attorney to make sure if you get a waiver from the family that they represent all the family and not just one individual, and that one individual cannot come back and object? I'm guessing that might not be an answer we would have yet. Is that correct?
No, rather than talking to an attorney, I talked to the facilitator who suggested that we contact the Mosley family directly with these questions. And so we're just waiting for the response from them.
And I think we believe it's likely it will come this week. Some people are concerned about that. Another question then coming up. Is there sorry, where is this here? Actually, let me, now the questions that are coming in faster here. Very concerning the release. Every unofficial poll I've seen puts Central Park way at the top. who is putting so much energy behind Mosley as far as putting permanent signs in the neighborhood?
That's not something that we're affiliated with, so I don't think we can answer that question.
I think I would offer that. Clearly, there's some folks who are definitely very excited about the name Mosley, and they're exercising their right to put out the effort to do that. And then another question about if how many people voted in the first round?
Right. So all of the numbers that go with how many votes were cast, how many votes were cast for each name, how many votes were excluded, what the what the weighted totals were, all of that will be released on August 1st for each wave, but we're not releasing the absolute numbers that that come with each wave, just the ranking and the relative relationship that came out of the figure that we posted.
This might be a question, I'm not sure, Amanda, maybe for Diane Dieter, that the yard signs going up were not within the rights of the folks who were doing it. The signage was attached to community property illegally and was removed by the MCA, and that's different than yard signs. I'm not aware of that happening. So I don't know if you or if Diane's still on, if she can respond to that.
I am, and there were some signs that were put up on MCA property attached to the community gardens. Was a sign that was recreated on the MCA signage, and that was taken down because there are processes to go through to put new names on things. So we do have a process. The yard signs, they're fine so long as they're not in, the city requires them not to be in the parking section, which means they cannot be between the curb and the sidewalk. They must be between the sidewalk and the home. And then signs can be there, and if homeowners want to place signs there, they're welcome to.
Okay, thanks, Diane.
Mm-hmm.
Amanda, another question. Can you explain the logic behind not releasing at least the gross number of people who voted in round one?
I'm just gonna say it again. So everything that is related to data quality is going to come out with a final report on August 1st. And so the absolute number of votes cast, the number of votes that were screened out, the number of votes that were counted, and the number of votes that went to each individual name will all be released on August 1st. And so anything that's related to data quality is not something that we're going to be discussing until after the final wave is closed.
I'm just gonna make a note. There's some just general comments on the chat group. Given the way they're coming in, I'm gonna kind of skip comments and go right to questions. Next question, how can Skyfield be eliminated as an option when it was placed in the top 5 vote times over an issue not shared by any cited percentage of the African American community?
Any what? Sorry.
I think that the last part of that question is about some confusion around the use of the term field in a name, which I think what we found is that was not an issue. That was just mistaken conversation, and other than it coming up in one line of comments, I don't think there was any real effect of that.
Right, so a member of the advisory board clarified for us that discussion around that didn't happen until after all of the names had been given back to the community. And so that the Sun board members met with the advisory board members I think it was last week. And then the next day was a Wednesday, and there was an MCA delegate meeting on that Wednesday, and one of the delegates who was also on the advisory board spoke publicly about that. So there have been a few times when it's been mentioned, but that wasn't something that had been mentioned before the names were released to the community.
Okay. why weren't the results of the second straw poll laid out in the same order or format as the first one was laid, as the first straw poll was laid out?
That was just a sorting issue. Sorry, I'm the one that sent the PDFs. And that would have been me, and that wasn't intentional. I thought that I had everything sorted the same way.
Yeah, that's actually the questions have stopped. So if more questions come up, or if you want to ask more questions, go ahead. I will just mention if people have questions going forward about the process, go ahead and email Stapleton United Neighbors at gmail.com. That's correct, right, Brian? We'll take that as a yes unless he chimes in.
Yes.
If you do that, that's the best way we can answer them, because it's difficult to follow on the different follow the questions in the different Facebook groups. So if you do that, what we do is each morning we go in and look at all the questions from the day before, and then we do everything we can to make sure we're answering as thoroughly and comprehensively as we can, which oftentimes takes several of us doing some research and putting it together, and then we'll post the questions from the day before on the Sun Facebook page and on the Sun Community Chat Facebook page. And now we do have questions coming in. There's still questions concerned about if the Mosley family doesn't get back to us this week, will the vote be delayed next week? And Amanda, I don't know. I think the answer is we plan on getting the response back from the Mosley family this week.
Yeah, we'll get a response.
Okay. There have been many discussions around usability, e.g. trademarks, URLs, SEO, etc., around the final candidates, and the suggestion that each candidate name get a sponsor to equally investigate that for each candidate name. Is that a possibility? My immediate response would be not unless we get somebody paid on staff to take on those sort of tasks.
Yeah, I don't think I understand the question. Getting a sponsor to like.
In other words, people can register URL and domain names. I think.
Yeah, and Jeff, I'll step in. All 9 of the original finalist names have a URL that Sun would be using, as well. Those names were communicated to MCA to allow them to potentially go out and reserve any of those names at their choosing. But we Sun do have names reserved for a URL, and we will cross that because we will have to have a petition with a name that will change our organization names, as will the MCA. So we did get that early on, and we were proactive in doing that.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Amanda and Brian, if I ask a question that you've answered somehow, it's just because just following questions, I'm not able to listen to your answers most of the time. Another question. So why are you not releasing the number of voters each week when you already told us there were 6,000 votes midweek?
So you have a lower bound.
What's that?
There's a lower bound on what we know of the possible set of numbers for that. So it's. Right.
I think ultimately we're having very high vote totals, and we will be able to release all that information shortly after all the voting is completed. Correct.
That's right.
And I think, just I'll reiterate what Amanda said. To be clear, we are not trying to withhold information from the community. We are trying to maintain the integrity of the process, to not allow anyone to influence the process that is going on. And there are a very few number of people that are validating the votes, but there is a full validation process that is done.
Thanks, Brian. We have a question. Are we willing to pay Mosley? And this may be an answer below it. It says the Mosley family is not charging any money, FYI. So I don't know if there's anything further with that. I think one participant answered the question of the other participant.
Okay, I haven't seen a response from the family yet, but that's fine.
Next question. So, oops, I already asked that one. Did Amanda just say that the field session didn't happen until after the names were pushed back to the community? I can jump in and say yes, that is correct.
I didn't hear the question. I'm sorry.
Did Amanda just say that the field question, the use of the term field as in the sky field, question didn't happen until after the names were pushed back to the community? I can explain the origin of that. Particularly early on, we were getting a lot of questions. We were trying to figure out the format. I threw it out there about why Skyview over Skyfield. That's on me. I mistook the information that it was brought up in the advisory board. And so when I went to seek clarification, it was clarified to me that no, that did not come up in the advisory board with why they met. I don't know if anybody else wants to add to that. That's the best I got on that. Next question. Why the change in process here? I'm not sure what that's about. We try to be pretty consistent. Perhaps you can send me another message with what your reference is. Next question. Is there any quorum guidance in the bylaws for a selection process like this and for the final change?
Well, so it's not a quorum, but we do need to get a petition with 100 signatures. And then any vote that would happen in a public community meeting would require a quorum of, I want to say it's 12. Can anyone confirm that? 12 people present in a public meeting?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So 100 signatures on a petition, and then a public meeting that's announced 30 days in advance with the language of what will be voted on. And then the meeting would have to meet quorum with 12 people present.
And Amanda, I think that the clarification there is the board has not finalized until we have that petition what the actual voting process will be, and how we would do that.
All right, it's likely that it will be a Zoom meeting if it's happening this year. Just to put that out there. Okay, so we are approaching the end of that first hour. Jeff, are there any other burning questions that look like they would be well suited to be asked right now versus something that we address tomorrow?
There's a few questions in the chat box here. Since we are running behind, what I will do, folks, is again just a plug. We will take these questions, add them to the questions that came in via email today, and we will post answers sometime tomorrow. Like I said, we make every attempt to answer the questions fully and to the best of our knowledge, truthfully, and it can take some time in between everything else we're doing in our lives each day. So we'll take the questions are on here now and any that come up after this and post them on the Sun Facebook page and also the Sun Community Chat Facebook page.
All right, and for anyone who's stepping away from the meeting now, I just want to remind you that Sun has monthly meetings on the third Tuesday of each month at 6:30. So there's an outreach hour from 6:30 to 7:30, and then the board hour from 7:30 to 8:30. And we hope to see you at the same meeting next month. So we'll just take like a 1 or 2 minute break before we get going with the board meeting. And everyone is welcome to stay for that portion.
Hey, Amanda, as host, you
Yeah.
can see the chat, just so you know, for the future.
Okay.
You just have to select someone's name and chat will pop up and you just select chat and you'll see all the chats.
When you're sharing your slides?
Not when you're sharing the slides, but as a
Yeah.
host.
Right. No, that's the issue, was that I was sharing slides for the majority of the meeting, and so I didn't have the chat accessible. All right. Shall we go ahead and dive in to the board meeting? Okay. There's a little bit of a loose agenda that we have. Whew. Okay. So the biggest thing that I wanted to do was confirm that I understood the who was serving on each committee, and to discuss if there were are we ready to talk about the roles of each committee for the next year, or is that just something that's going to need to wait until after things are out with the community vote August 1st?
Do you want to wait until, are you asking if we want to wait until August, the August meeting, to jump into that?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm okay with that, because I'm thinking about one other committee and I just need to do a little bit of research as to what that might involve.
Do you want to ask questions about it now, or is that something you'd rather do offline?
I'm interested in the education committee, but I don't know parameters. I don't know anything specific about it. So, and I can talk to Jay about it. I can talk individually about it.
Okay.
Right.
Amanda, I'd say it may also depend a little bit on the pandemic too, because there's a lot of things that, like, for sustainability, we're just not going to do much of until we can be in person and not get each other sick.
Right. Okay. But in terms of education, I got an email from Jeff Horsfall, who couldn't be with us tonight, and he's going to be stepping back from education. And so I don't know. I think it's Jay. Is Aaron on this call?
It was
Aaron.
Jeff and Aaron. However, it's predominantly been me and Jeff, just due to availability.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm on this call as well.
Okay. Hi, Aaron. And so Jeff is going to be stepping back from that, and then I think putting his effort into communication and outreach.
Mm-hmm.
So Carol, if you're talking to anyone else about what's going on in education, it would be Jay and potentially Aaron for moving forward, and or Jeff to find out what it was that he was doing that he won't any longer be doing. So I think those are all conversations that might be helpful.
Will do.
And Amanda, I think Jeff, Eder, and Mark have kind of been stepping in on outreach / communication, and I'm helping with that.
And Jeff Barron and Sandra, I think it's it's all three Jeffs, Mark, Sandra, and you.
Yeah.
So and then I don't know, I'm part of that somewhat, but so we should have something to.
Well, I think that it does raise the question. Originally we did have a communication committee and an outreach committee, and I think we probably need to do that, but that is something that I think we have to address after the name change.
Right. That's a good point. And that makes sense, but it will, yeah. I mean, it's so intertwined, it's hard to, sure. It could possibly either just be one cohesive group that subdivides as needed, or just two separate efforts. I would tend to think of it as a cohesive group that that kind of parses out tasks well. Yes, Jeff, Barron?
Well, I was going to say communication now seems to be mostly sort of just responding to queries, but it seems like as we go forward, maybe it'll be more like redesigning the website seems to be the thing everyone keeps mentioning.
Yes.
that will be a name change requirement. So.
Yeah, we've had offers from people who are willing to kindly donate their professional services to help us with new branding, and those resources are available to businesses that are in the community as well, who need help with the same thing. But that'll be effort that that we'll know how to work with in a couple of weeks from now. All right. And so in terms of, so we don't have to set out, but just to kind of know what people are, who the right go-to is at this point. So transportation, is that still Rick and Carol? Is that accurate?
For me, I'm assuming.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm still transportation. Yep.
Okay. And then safety, I know Carol, you'd been in touch with Kiera earlier today, and just taking a more holistic approach to safety and hoping to change the dynamic of the conversation with Denver Police for the monthly meetings about how we talk about safety in the community, in addition to locking our doors and closing our garages and things. Okay, which we should all do. All right, and so I have Carol down for as a safety liaison, and then for diversity and inclusivity, Mandel, I have you down. Are you? And that I know from your email earlier today, you're still that's still a priority. Okay, and Jeff E, where are you? In the past, there you go. In the past, you've been on that committee, but I know that you were really looking to consolidate your effort around the program that you were in with the city. So am I correct in saying that I shouldn't list you as a contact for diversity and inclusivity?
Stick with the outreach, yeah. And right now, it's hard to see past anything past the vote.
It is. It really is. I agree. Okay. So the last one, because we already, well, no, I guess maybe there are two more. So sustainability, I have contacts listed as Mark and Aaron, with that also including parks. Is that still accurate?
Well, did Jeff Horsfall not want to be engaged because he was the main contact with the Sustainable Neighborhoods thing, and I wasn't sure if that was going to persist after the resolution of the name change.
You weren't sure if what was going to persist?
If he was going to return to that after the name change.
I think he wants to focus on outreach. Do you have the bandwidth to be the primary contact for sustainability?
Yeah, because I don't think we're going to do much of anything till the pandemic's over. So for all the things we've talked about, it's just really hard for us to do much.
Yeah.
Beyond that.
Okay. And Aaron, if the role is both sustainability and parks because I'm still not sure if the Parks Committee with the Citizens Advisory Board dissolved or not, but every now and then we get a parks person, and it's good to just know like where to direct that. And are you still okay being a contact for questions related to parks when we get them? Okay, great.
We have a resident, Brooke Lee, has her hand up. I wanted to let them get a chance to talk of it. I think I don't know if it's relevant to our conversation. So. Oh,
this is John, JC Futrell on the call from Mosley campaign. Oh, that was a private message.
Okay.
Sorry. I think it was okay that I read.
Sorry, I'm going to ask Brooke to unmute herself.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
We can hear you. Hi.
Hi guys, this is JC Futrell from the Mosley family. How are you guys doing?
Great, thanks. How are you? Can you, Carol, you were trying to say something or
taking another call.
What's that?
Lee or this call?
It's the same person.
The same
person.
Yep. Okay. Sorry, JC. Please return to talking.
Oh, okay. No worries. Let me see here. I can start my video. Oh, here we are. Sorry, I had to run to the supermarket to grab some buttermilk. I'm making biscuits tonight. It's my night to cook, so sorry, I'm in the car right now. Hi guys. There were some questions for me. that I'd like to address. So if anybody has any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Yeah, so it's really just the main thing that you and I were emailing about yesterday. And so that's just the question about, like, is the family willing to sign? And I would need to look at the exact language that it was that I sent you, because it's not language that I normally use. Like a waiver to give people access to use the name. There were like 10 other words in the sentence. I'm sorry that I'm not saying them right now. Okay.
Right, no worries. Yeah. So with that being said, you know, the whole idea of you know, compensation for use of our family that come up on, you know, Facebook groups and such, and it's not even a thing that we've remotely considered. And so the idea of using my grandparents' images and their audio and their video is something that we then contacted our family lawyer about, just to make sure that it wasn't misused. And that's our only main concern. We're not concerned about getting any compensation off of this whatsoever. Our goal was to have our family name used in a positive light, and to bring some healing to our community. And that's really all we've been trying to do. All of the accusations and innuendo and things that have been posted on social media are really unfortunate, because I've been available to talk to anyone about what we've been doing as a family. Something we hoped would be a good thing. And so that's where we are. That's it.
Okay.
So just let people know who you are, because your name says Brooke Lee.
Oh, does it? Oh, that's weird. I'm JC Futrell. I think I must have clicked the link that she sent me to get on this call.
I'll rename you.
Thanks.
So from what you just said, it's like audio and actual images of them that you would prefer to take through the family, but the actual name would be like given over to the community for use and like in business names and business marketing as people choose.
Yeah, I mean, that is the goal. I mean, we're not looking to make any money off of any businesses or anything like that. You know, if there are images and audio and video that are used in the likeness of my grandparents, that's what we're having a lawyer kind of draft up as far as some language might be concerned. But we are not looking to personally make any money off of this. We just want to make sure that the images and the usage of my grandparents, you know, their audio, their video, which there is tons of, and their images are just used, are not misused, and they're used in a positive, hopeful light. That's all that we really want out of this.
Okay, that's really helpful. And so I'm just going to repeat it back to you, because I feel like that's directly in contrast, but it's directly addressing the points that that I've read and that some's been asked about. And so it's ensuring that when audio, images, and video are used, they're used in a positive light. But in general, the goal is just to have things out there, and then there wouldn't be any restrictions on the name, on the use of the name.
No,
yeah,
that's generally what we're hoping for. And that's the consensus that we're looking for, you know, in the usage of our family name in this way. Yeah.
Right. Thank you. That's incredibly helpful. I'm so glad you were on tonight to clarify that.
JC,
yeah.
This is Jeff Eder. I'm one of the Sun Board members. I just want to follow up. I really appreciate your answer. I've learned a lot about your family the last few weeks. What you're saying certainly seems in character with everything I've learned. This is a really persistent question. People asking over and over. And so I want to just clarify, because I think we'd like to put this to bed.
Yes, sir.
I just want to highlight here that when we put out response to this question, what I'd like to say, if you're comfortable with this, is I'll say, we have received assurances from the family, including recorded video where they have verified, they being you in this case, their intent to use this for any revenue source or in any way to receive compensation. So just to make it clear, make it easier to answer that in a very affirmative manner.
Yes, and to be honest, it's a little disappointing that even the insinuation came up when, you know, we've been very clear about what we intended to do, which is have some real reconciliation in this city that my family has called home for over 100 years.
Yeah, understandable. And I think, certainly there's, with all the different names, there's the upside is clearly a lot of investment in our community by the folks who live here. And sometimes that doesn't come out in the best light. But I think overall, what we're seeing is that there's a real opportunity for the community to come together no matter what happens. And so I think we'll continue to focus on that and really appreciate your response here.
That's awesome. And to kind of add maybe one thing, that my family did kind of discuss, since we are talking about the idea of compensation or money or whatever, is that if, the Mosley image is used on like t-shirts or mugs or whatever, that, whatever manner, that maybe some of that money can be put aside for a scholarship fund for someone who lives in the Stapleton neighborhood. My grandparents have down through the Denver Foundation to give scholarships to young people that are leaving high school and going on to college. And maybe that would be one way that, some revenue can be used, because it will be a lucrative thing to use the Mosley name if the community gets changed, to make sure that some young person can go to college every year.
And Amanda, I have to step in and say, we already talked about the name change. This is the board meeting. I understand you were late, JC, but we have to be careful that we have 4 names, and Mosley is not assured that that's going to be the name. So if we can move on, I'd appreciate it.
Sure.
And I just want to note too, this is in no way endorsing any of the 4 remaining names by me. I can see that question coming up in some of the comments tomorrow. This is just merely seeking clarification. So thank you.
Well, we had like 4 questions back to back to back in the other hour about this topic, so it's nice to be able to get to the answer.
I agree, but I think we've answered it, and we should move on.
Okay. All right. Thank you, JC. All right. Okay. So we had talked about sustainability with Mark and Aaron being listed as contacts there. The last committee role that I have was down to education, which is kind of what we started with. And so I have Jay as a contact for education, and it sounds like maybe Carol, although Carol, that's spreading you across 3 different committees, which sounds like it might be a lot, but it's fine with me if it's fine with you. And then Aaron, were you initially on education, or yes, you were listed as education as well last year.
Yep, I'm still okay being on that.
Okay. Okay. And so as we have a list of people who have some interest in joining the board. And so as we clear off what we're doing in the next couple of weeks and can kind of like refocus on what things are going to look like moving forward, it'll be helpful for me to know who the right contacts are as people have questions about directions of committees and different efforts. And so thanks for letting me clarify that today. This is usually something we would have done back in June.
Hey, Amanda,
yeah.
are you going to manage, so as we get, are you keeping the list of people that express interest so that, I didn't know, because typically it's either the vice president but I just wanted to make sure that we were getting the names to the right person.
I have not been keeping a list. I can go back through emails though.
And I'll do that, Amanda. I'll make the list, and then I'll send it out to you and Mark and Jeff. So we can decide.
Okay. And then again, I can't remember if I said this during the last hour. So anyone who's interested should, just be great. Give us a little bit of grace for the next couple of weeks, because this has really been consuming, and we don't have a lot of bandwidth to be kind of thinking about what else it is that we're going to be doing for the remainder of the year. But after, as August 1st comes and goes, and we can redirect some energy back to other tasks, then we'll start thinking about goals and objectives for the next year in the context of a pandemic, and then you can, for the people who are interested in joining the board, you can think about what your background is and how that would dovetail with anything that we're doing, or complement, or just add to a supplement any of the effort that it sounds like we're going towards. And so the August meeting should provide a little bit more background there. And then I think it's in September when we would be so maybe in August, if people can join us again and talk and listen to a bit more about what we're going to be doing in committee work, and then in September we'll talk about bringing some people onto the board if there's still interest at that point.
And Amanda,
Yeah.
I think you're being pretty optimistic because we have to give 30 days notice before the community meeting, and so we have to do the petition, get the petition, give 30 days. So we're probably talking about our name not being finalized until sometime in September anyway.
Right.
So
okay.
I think we can take on other things once the broader vote is done. And I would just say, if anyone has interest that's on the committee or on the call, to just email stapletonunitedneighbors@gmail.com.
Okay, thanks. Also, so I know that sometimes we as a board just pause and talk about things that have been happening in like different sections of the community, and it looks like we have a couple of minutes to do that tonight. So is there anything that has been happening more regionally that needs to be brought out for discussion at this point? Jeff, you're muted.
You're right, I am muted. Are you talking about in the chat?
Oh, no.
Oh, just general. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, we're clear of any of those types of questions in the chat.
Oh, I'm okay. Well, I also meant just from board members and what's happening that that you've been aware of with neighbors. Anything that hasn't come up in an email already. Mark has his hand up. Yes, Mark.
Yeah, I don't know if everybody knows because I hadn't seen it announced, but MLK now goes all the way through to Peoria with one lane in each direction. And I thought that it's not technically my area of the neighborhood, but I thought that was news that would be good for us to share with the community for those that didn't know that it is now going through. Now there's stop signs along the way, so everyone should, be aware and watch out for those, but that there's actually progress going on. It does not look like Sprouts is open though, I can confirm that, so.
Sprouts doesn't open until August 5th. I went on the 17th, which is when they had initially posted that they'd be open, but then there was a sign saying, like little paper sign on the window saying, I know.
And Amanda, you would personally like to know, in case you didn't already, that La Sandia is now open. So
I've already been.
Okay, good.
But they closed. I didn't get to eat there. I went and it was 7:10, and they had closed at 7.
But I am definitely eager to find out if anybody else knows about anything else closing or opening.
I did notice. I was in Eastbridge, and I noticed that Las Conginas, and it looked like hashtag is back open again.
I have eaten there too. Would anyone else like to know where I've been eating? That's what the rest of the meeting is going to be dedicated.
Well, you ate it next door on Saturday night.
No, we didn't. We didn't go there. We ended up. That's where. So I saw Brian and Matt on the patio at oh goodness, what's it called now?
Concourse.
Not Concourse.
No, it's Cholon.
Oh,
Cholon. Yeah, and so but then we ended up going down to Los Chingones. Etais is open too. Best French dip. Thank you, Sandra.
And someone mentioned is Sweetwater is closed. Does anyone have any update on that?
I think that I was reading that it's closed permanently, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I heard that the guy who has the sushi place in Stanley is opening a ramen place where that Italian restaurant used to be in Stanley.
They've had a sign up, but I don't have an opening date for them. Anyone else?
I'll just mention you can find me at Constellation Ice Cream.
Yeah.
Great.
I'm wondering to move to what's opening or not opening schools, and next month having a DPS representative slated. I mean, obviously there's going to be so much change between now and then, but I think that's a huge need in the community right now to keep communication going as much as we can facilitate.
That
what's on our plates already.
The timing of our meeting next month is that week that they pushed to be the first week of school. So initially school was supposed to open on the 17th of August, and now it's opening on the 24th. Nope, I'm wrong. So the 18th is the week that they're not opening. So that might be a tricky time to have someone from DPS attend. or a very opportune time. I don't know. Does anyone
Yeah.
have any insight into that?
I think they're going to be swamped.
Yeah.
You could always leave it open-ended, say over the next few months. It'd be great to
Yeah.
somebody come, especially our school board representative, who I don't think was able to respond the last time she was on the agenda.
I think it's something that I'm happy to still pick up and try to, continue requesting. There's just a huge need in the community right now for information and communication.
Yeah, that would be helpful if you'll reach out to Jennifer Bacon to see if which of the next couple of meetings would work for her to attend.
Speaking of upcoming meetings, I was in contact with Dana Hoffman here the last couple of weeks, talking about some updates on transportation issues in the neighborhood and some of the issues that we've had neighbors bring to our attention, so she could review those. Some of the hot traffic spots, the eastbound off ramp of I-70 at Central Park, some of those things. So she'll be getting us information back on those. The protected bike lane on Central Park Boulevard is now packaged. It's all done. The specification documents, it's all done. And it is being packaged with about 3 other jobs within the city of Denver for bidding purposes, so they can get more preferential numbers on the bids. She says she finds it unlikely that that'll get under construction this fall yet because of that bidding process. They may start some initial things, but the bulk of that work will be finished next year. Went over some of the other, again, the historic safety things we've talked about, and she didn't have a lot of new information, but was looking at again continuing some options of what they could do, and then talked a little bit about future dates for her at our monthly meetings. So are we able to look out far enough, given the current circumstances and stuff, to maybe pinpoint a meeting for her to attend and present?
I think that we're pretty open at this point. I mean, this seems to be the format that we're going to be working with for the immediate future. Was hers the meeting that was canceled? Was that the March meeting that, oh my gosh, yeah.
Yep.
So it was
We
supposed to be
had her
like,
on the docket, yeah.
so she was scheduled for like last November, and then we had to reschedule, and then it was March, and then we had to reschedule. So yeah, I mean, as soon as she has some availability, I think that it would be beneficial, since that's something that we've been unable to coordinate for a while now. So yeah, Rick, would you mind finding?
Yeah, I can find out. I mean, do we have any meetings that are booked here in the next?
We don't.
Okay. Okay, well, I can probably get her, I'll check her availability, but I could potentially get her on the August date.
Okay.
So I'll let you know.
Hey, I had a question. So Mark, we had talked at some point about Carol and I picking up notes for you over the next couple months. Is that, I didn't know if you were taking notes for this meeting, then suddenly I just realized it, so I started taking notes. I don't want to duplicate effort though if you're doing it for this meeting.
I have definitely not been because we have the meeting recording.
Oh, okay.
But generally for minutes, clearly nobody's been looking at the minutes that I did for the last year, because they're, shall we say, extremely limited to just the sort of main actions that we've been taking, votes and stuff like that. So which I don't believe have done at all today. So I would have had virtually basically no notes anyways.
Yeah.
But if you've been taking them, that's great. I mean, I think it's helpful for folks, but I preface everything I always say of, I'm willing to be secretary, but I suck at note taking. So keep that in mind.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, that doesn't bother me in any way, but,
okay.
but for today, I'm happy to take the minutes, but if we're recording it, does that mean we post the recording and therefore we don't have to take minutes for this meeting?
We are posting the recording, and that would be the official minutes.
All right, good. Then I will stop. Thanks.
But Mark, would you prefer to not have the role of secretary then, just because it seems to be something that you're reluctant to to have.
I would prefer to revisit the question when we're no longer recording our meetings, because I think most people will find it much more helpful for the long run to have Zoom meetings that we record.
Okay. Okay, fine.
But if anybody is eager to, take on that role, I would be more than happy to step aside.
Yeah, well, I think that the bigger issue is maybe helping people navigate what is stored and available on the website, and maybe accessing the information. And so not just like recording it and getting it down on paper, but kind of curating it in a way that's accessible to the community. And so that's what I want to make sure is happening. And whoever it is that feels like they're the most inclined to do that with energy and enthusiasm, I'd like to make sure that you're aligned with that role.
Well, I don't have a ton of energy or enthusiasm, but I can definitely keep taking notes, and we can see how it goes. And it's nice that we have the recording as backup either way.
Okay, thanks. All right.
So can I add one other thing, Amanda? I don't know if you would plan on talking about it, but it does relate to communications, and since like it seems like half of the board is now on the communications outreach committee. I wanted to give one update on things from the last time I had talked to Jeff and others about some of the software packages that are out there. And I'm happy to do so at another time in a community meeting if we're going to have a communications and outreach committee meeting at some point. But just to give you all a sense of things, one of the things to keep in mind is that as our email list grows, so does our costs. And if I know right now we're using vertical response for email, but one of the things we've talked about in the past is migrating to some sort of system that is a integrated system of website, social media, and email, among other things, surveying and other stuff too. I've been looking at different options for that. But one thing that's sort of key about that is the bigger our email list goes, the more expensive that gets. So at this point with an email list, it sounded like Brian said around 10,000. We're getting close to a cost somewhere between $4,000 and $6,000 a year. So we may need to then start, if we want to go in that route, looking at a fundraising committee as well, which I'm happy to help with if we get to that point. It's just something to think about. We don't really necessarily need to discuss it now or have an answer now. But JC's comment earlier about t-shirts might be relevant as an avenue for thinking about doing stuff like that in the future, especially as we start to rebrand whatever the name ends up being. We may want to think about a few avenues in that process to look at fundraising to help pay for that on an annual basis, because I think it would be really helpful with the number of email addresses we have to be able to fully utilize that with all of the other issues going on and not just sort of let it die off. But I recognize that, we haven't historically been bringing in $4,000 to $6,000 a year in revenue to cover that kind of expense.
Right. And do you want to, just for context, compare that with what we're currently paying for vertical response annually?
I think Brian pays for it all for us. So, there's still email credits we have to buy, right, Brian?
Now, well, we just in the last month. So yeah, the cost up until now has been zero. So we still are under the limit for one email per month for free, up to 10,000. So
yeah, it seems like if there's a lot of benefit to it, and this is something we really want to do, and we are getting bigger, and that's a good thing. And so our communication outreach potential is greater. We should figure out exactly why we would want to spend that money on something like that. And then if we do, I know that we haven't been, running the kickball tournament for a number of years, but that always brought in revenue that we would then donate to a charitable organization, which was a good use of the money. But maybe that's another avenue we could look at if there's real justification for, doing some type of integrated website.
Well, I'll jump in here too and say, I put out there, when you consider what was the Block Captain Network and how can we move that into a program that's going to fit most effectively, not just when I said this decade, but also the size of this community. I think we need an electronic outreach and access that goes far beyond what's available to us now. And I realize not everybody's going to have access to have internet access, but I think we can do our best to figure that out along the way. But you know, the Block Captain network as it is, I can't see a vision as to how that could continue consistently and throughout the entire neighborhood on an ongoing basis. So I'm looking for electronic solutions as much as possible.
Okay, and I understand that the communications committee is meeting this Thursday to talk more about that in general.
I think this Thursday we're talking about next week.
Okay.
And
oh, okay.
The renaming and closing that out well.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. So right. So then this will just be something that picks up in August. Okay.
Yep, I just want to give a heads up about what might happen. Well, one of the things we need to think about for that conversation so that everyone can sort of like do a little research, do some homework. If people have other thoughts and stuff, that's fine. I've just been pricing out, you know, comprehensive systems. We can certainly bring that cost down substantially by doing piecemeal, but it gets a lot harder to manage at times when you do that. Like if you do website separate from email, separate from anything social media, but that may be a route that we have to look at as well. And then at one point we had also talked about the asking for funding from the Foundation for Sustainable Urban Communities. And I don't know, you know, if that's a conversation we should restart with them soon. They may be eager to help support our rebranding efforts. So now might be, or soon might be a good time to, you know, open up that dialogue just to get a sense of what, you know, might be realistic with them as well.
Yeah, I think one thing that became clear, in addition to the advent of social media, it's also crowdfunding. And I think that voluntary funding from the community is an option that when we started, you know, 15 plus years ago, people used to send checks and we used to deposit checks. But I think we also, and I'm happy to look into, and some of the tools that Mark is looking at have those capabilities. And so I think, have the option, but I think we have to have a plan and a commitment to the community that what they're going to fund and how we're going to use it. So I think we as a board have that responsibility, because I think it is key. We've always struggled with how we communicate to the community, and we've used the Sunspot as a key. We've used our website, and our website shows the age, and so I think the rename effort will help us relaunch the website. And then we also struggled to get people to sign up, and the vote has allowed us to put people on our email list and allow them to opt out if they choose. But that, I think it's been good. But Mark, I didn't key at Mark on that question. But I think fundraising becomes easier if we as a board agree that a potential crowdfunding effort is something. But I think before we go do that, we have to put a comprehensive plan together, both for marketing and updates to move forward.
Yeah, it seems like we have an opportunity in a sense, because there is a lot of interest and we have gotten a lot of names. People know what Sun is now. You know, if there's a way to kind of turn that into changing the website or enhancing our ability to communicate with people, now seems like a good time to do it.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we should also consider this time to pull on community members. Like when we get ready to rename, rebrand, we could possibly reach out to graphic artists and that sort of thing within the community to help with some of that. And then Mark, I wanted to, I guess what I would like to do is, and this is probably being part of the conversation on the website, but I know that there are some plugins that you can use with, what is that, WordPress, that allows you to do some some of the social media stuff built into the website. So I think I'll talk to you offline about some of the.
That's good.
The options.
For some folks, Amanda or whoever, a question did come in on the chat about asking the MCA for funding for this type of project.
That's what we used to do.
We have, so the MCA does support specific projects that sometimes when, I mean, historically they've supported a project that we've taken on annually, but I think that their preference is that we not rely on them for operating expenses. And so if it sounds like this is something that would be an ongoing regular expense, it shouldn't be something that's what we rely on them to fund. But from, like Mark alluded to, it sounded like the Foundation for Sustainable Urban Communities was open to having us rely on them for operating expenses. So I think that for something like this, we could rely on the foundation, but for like maybe one-off expenses or events or projects, then the MCA would be a source for funding.
That's been the case, yes, Amanda.
So even with the donation for the kickball tournament, like, because that was ongoing, that was every year.
Right, but
Jeff,
it was an event.
We made a commitment to them that we would make a donation for the proceeds, and so they were in effect passing through to support the tournament and the donation to a community organization.
Okay, I didn't realize we committed to.
We did.
I just thought that's how we did it. Okay.
Yeah. And last year they funded the Day of Remembrance. So it has always been event driven.
Reflection.
I'm sorry.
All right. Okay. So it sounds like we obviously for the next 2 weeks we have our plates full. We have a lot of people who are focusing on communication, and we have some pretty big objectives that that we're going to be tackling in August in tandem with rolling out the name that's emerging from this. And like Mandel was saying, like embracing the effort from local graphic designers as we go through our rebranding. So it's all intertwined. But I think that, I mean, I think we all kind of have a feel for what's happening, and hopefully anyone who's interested in joining the board can also kind of start jumping into the conversation, and as it's ongoing in August as well. I don't know. Yes.
A comment came in on the chat group. Wondering if you just review all the different ways that people can find us and interact with us.
Okay. So currently the website, I guess, is the primary source, which has each of our pictures and bios and email addresses and a list of committees.
Hey Amanda.
Yeah.
Amanda, I think it's just the question that we answer on the bottom of our emails. We have the website. You can email us at stapletonunitedneighbors@gmail.com, and we have the Sun community chat and Sun page on Facebook. Those are the three primary ways they can interact with us.
Right, for interaction, and then they can get information from the Sunspot and the Front Porch newspaper, but that's not interactive unless you go to their website and leave a comment, but then we wouldn't necessarily see it. All right. Okay, so I'm leaning towards ending just a few minutes early tonight.
Hey, I just, even though I know we're about to quit and I know we're about to close up, I just want to give a shout out. Everyone's doing a really fantastic job, but I have to say Jeff Ederer has really stepped up in terms of coordinating all of the communication stuff. And, it's really been a huge task. And I just wanted to, just personally say how much I appreciate him stepping forward to do that.
Go on.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm done. Good job, buddy.
Yeah.
Well,
thank you,
and
Jeff.
And I think everybody needs to realize that without Amanda, this naming process would not be going as smoothly. She worked very closely with the advisory board, worked very closely with Steve, and has worked tirelessly over the past 6 weeks. So Amanda, but Jeff, I agree with you. I think it is all 12 of us have to realize that this is an effort that we all have to do and contribute, and everyone's doing their part in one way or another.
Yeah, and I've tried to reiterate that anytime this has come up with accolades that have come in our direction. I really feel like the 12 of us have a diverse set of skills that have really just been beneficial in different ways during these past few weeks. So I'm so happy to have each of you to be facing everything that we're addressing right now. And I think that, you know, it's for an uncharted process that it's going smoothly. And
Here. This doesn't happen without Amanda. Definitely.
Oh,
Thank
okay.
you.
Well, thanks.
And happy belated birthday, Amanda.
Oh, thank you.
And there are.
And happy birthday tonight, Jeff Edwards. So let's shift that back to Jeff Edwards.
Yeah,
Yay!
back at Jeff. Happy birthday.
And
Happy
now we've come
birthday.
full circle.
We're not going to sing to him though, right?
We can.
Now,
Just remember it's
being
recorded.
recorded.
Let me
We'll have
just
to
let me just tell you a quick story. First email I had this morning was from my wife's 90-year-old aunt. She sent me a birthday greeting. I don't know how it's done, but it was a video of Donny Osmond singing happy birthday to me with dancers and everything, calling out my name, calling out my age. I don't know how it's done, but it was the funniest thing in the world. But most importantly, it was from my wife's 90-year-old aunt.
Wow. Now I really want to see that. You gotta send that around. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think I can screen share.
Ah.
And I won't make that possible. So you're welcome, Jeff.
Amazing thing is, he still looks the same as he did on Donnie and Marie.
All right.
All right,
8
guys.
minutes early, Amanda.
8 minutes early.
Let's go.
We did it. Okay, thanks, guys. We'll talk
Hey,
again.
don't forget to save your chats and send them to Jeff or Carol so they can be consolidated.
Good point. Thanks.
Yeah, I put all mine in a Google Doc already, so I think you're good. Okay, thanks.
Thank you to the community members who have hung on with us
Thank you.
too. Hopefully you didn't all walk away from your computers or something. Thanks for coming with us.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks. Good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Amanda, I can't figure out how to end the meeting.
You just click leave, but I was going to stay on because I didn't want to leave you. You don't have a leave button in your bottom right corner?
It's not there on, let me see.
I think you just have to mouse over the bottom of the corner.
Yeah, it's not, yeah. I'll just close Zoom and then text me if it didn't close the meeting.
Okay, I'll text you either way so that you know.
Thanks.